Hey, how you doing? Just in case you guys are wondering, no, I didn't miss the resemblance to Bubbles from the Trailer Park Boys. My good glasses are broken and I'm going through the world like this. And, I'm just going to lean into it. I'm Paige from the Magic of Horsecraft, coming from you indoors in my parka. And that makes sense because it's Northern Ontario out there and it's winter. And this is a 3-season cabin in winter. There's a 4th season, which means overnight this beautiful little cabin of mine, my sanctuary, goes down to just about below freezing at the floor level anyway. And I thought, well, it warms up. I'm going to do something fun. And I had a light bulb go off because I wanted to share a book with you. And I was like, oh my God, should I start a book club? Maybe I should. So this is it. And this book you could read whether you are a horse person or not, although it is directed to horse people. I think it would be a good read if you weren't, because the stories are good. And stories that include horses and life lessons are just always, doesn't matter who you are really. You could actively not like horses and, oh, there's a nice story. So if you really like horses, you'll like it even better. And I wanted to share with you the books that went into the making of the course that we did. And I'm looking at shelves of them around me. So there's no end to the number of book clubs we can do, really. But which one would I pick first and why? And I picked TIK Maynard's. In the middle are the Horsemen. And that'll be backwards for you, but that's not a me problem, seems to me. So it's In the Middle Are the Horsemen by TIK Maynard, and I have a story, surprise, surprise, about meeting TIK. I was in Florida, and I had heard about him and read articles that he's written in various online magazines that he's written for, and I know people who know him, and he's in the same circles, but he's far younger than I am. And I was in Florida and I was watching cross country at a horse park I hadn't been to for 30 years. I know it's really hard to believe when you look at me that I've been alive that long, but I have. And I watched a bunch of horses and riders from prelim intermediate level on up negotiate. I looked for the difficult obstacles, the fun ones to watch, right? So the ones that required a lot of accuracy and steering and cooperation and a specific preparation and length of stride and distance and angle. And I watched someone go through that was just magic. And I listened and waited for the name, and I heard TIK Maynard. And I was like, of course, that makes sense. Because I had read that TIK was into Liberty training and indeed won a competition, one of those thoroughbred makeovers, and he did a freestyle at the end, and he stood up on his horse and was like, ta-da! And he was amazing, right? I was like, oh my God, of course that was him. So later on in the day, there was some nice man walking around with a horse. He was really friendly because came over to talk to me. Not a big surprise. I mean, I was with Mabel. Mabel is a chick magnet, a man magnet, a dog. Everybody loves Mabel. Mabel's just a magnet for attention. And this gentleman said, oh, I really like your car, and what's the magic of horsecraft? And I was like, well, the magic is all about, it doesn't matter which discipline you come from. I came from this background as the daughter of a vet where my dad said every time they walked in, they'll have different words for it, and they'll have a different way of asking for it, but we're all trying to get the same thing, and we're all equal. And so I was talking to him about my concepts that I want to talk about in my podcast. I said, I'm going to have a podcast. And in my head, TIK Maynard was going to be one of the people that I interviewed, and but I think I told him about I was going to interview Leslie because I was waiting. I was at my friend's place, Leslie and Leslie's, and I was going to interview one of the Leslies, and William Micklem, and I was asking Denny Emerson and waiting to hear back, and I was going to interview Kim Wellness and all these people. I was really excited to introduce people to what really is, what's the magic. And he was so friendly and nice that I grabbed some gifts that my friend Kristen Lowe had sent me with. And I had a big bundle of gifts to give to people that I stayed with, because I stayed at my friends' places who were all running horse businesses and busy people, and wanted to be gracious and spread this amazing stuff that my friend makes. So I came over with some gifts and I introduced myself. He said, it was TIK Maynard! I was like, oh my God. I tell him now that, yeah, I wanted to interview him for my podcast. Now I'm kind of starstruck, right? It was just this guy and a kid was climbing all over him. He had his 2-year-old there and he's like, oh, it's just, I've been really busy today. Like, been riding a horse at an event. Yeah, he was busy all day. Probably coaching too. Maybe more than one horse. And this 2-year-old's like, woo, woo, all over him. And he's like, yeah, my wife had a baby yesterday or 2 days ago. Maybe it was 2 days. 2 days ago. And I'm like, no way. That's amazing. And he was there at an event. He's like, yeah, you know, so my little guy needs attention. So he asked for some time with his, he was amazing with his little guy. And it's like, that's amazing. And he said he would make time for me before I left Florida so that I could see this Liberty stuff he did and how he fitted in, and why clicker training was, I had not embraced clicker training or treats. It's like, I don't know, you're going to need to convince me. He said, well, come to the farm. So in the middle of, he's got a new baby at home and he vents and he's got a 2-year-old. He's like, I'll make time for you. It's like, okay. I was supposed to leave the next day, and then I sat around for the next couple days kind of going on Facebook, don't forget about me. I'm supposed to be driving home from Florida. And I was like, I don't know when I'm leaving. I'm just waiting to hear from TIK. He said he'd fit me in. And he did. And when I visited, they had a 5-day-old. Their mom was pushing around in a pram. Very practical woman. Has written some books on horsecraft. His father is also famous horse practitioner of good horsecraft. And they were all just doing the thing. Sinead was on a horse. I felt so subhuman and puny. I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't have been on a horse 5 days later. Which is amazing. So these are Olympians. They're are members of our senior teams from Canada and the USA, TIK and his wife, Sinead. And in the middle of all that, he brought the horse that I witnessed him do the beautiful work on at the horse park the week before out and went, well, I'm just going to go in there and play, put some music on. I have some tape of it I like secretly. It's like, beg forgiveness later. I got to film this. I don't know whether it's... I just sort of put it down and filmed it poorly, but I captured some beautiful work with this horse, going around barrels and changing direction and doing fun things and occasionally getting a treat. And he told me why clicker training was important. In his mind, it was like, otherwise you're trying to do brain surgery with a monkey wrench. The click can identify the moment the horse started to think about it. You can, as the horse is making the decision to do the behavior, you can reward it. And that's when there's magic. It's not several strides later and the horse is like, what am I getting this for? Oh, I did, a while back. It's so precise. And if you have really good protocols around respect and boundaries, and when they can expect treats and not, then they won't do all the insanity of, bugging you for treats and stuff all the time. So I was like, all right, I'll learn it then. He's like, yeah, it's important to incorporate. We incorporate it with all our horses. We do some freedom work with them, liberty work. And he's like, I didn't even know this yet. He's like, there's competitions, right? And levels. I was like, no way. This whole world that opened up while I was doing things outside of the horse world because I didn't want to make a living in it, and it pretty was like, I'm from North Bay, right? How many people in the snow do you want to teach every day, and who's going to show up to pay the bills? ask most of my peers who run businesses in the area how fulfilling their lives are, and like, I didn't want any part of it. So in the interim, a bunch of evolution has happened, and I'm coming back in going, well, I want to know how they do that. I mean, I can give you a PhD in pressure and release, and there's still a bunch of areas there that I haven't explored with natural horsemanship, and these people have horses dance around them at liberty. I want some of that, and I can't tell you how far away I was from it when that became a thing that I wanted. It was inaccessible to me at the time. That is a whole other story unto itself. The sort of revelatory moment in Montana. The dog that wants in. I'll let you in. Hello, girl. Go in your bed. Your feet are snowy. Over here. Yeah. No, that's my bed. She's on my yoga mat. That's, yes. Yes. Good job. Excellent work. Oh my God, Thelma is doing so well. So we've had some help with dog training, clicker training. After I had a great day with TIK, he made time for me to interview him. A total stranger. So he was up and asked for 2 free periods of his time. And I think he gave a little more than an hour each time. And I peppered him with questions. And he was driving to the airport somewhere when he fit me in for the interview, which you can hear on my Substack or on Spotify or whatever. I think I have it everywhere it's supposed to be. Honestly, trying to do that sort of thing is a huge tech stretch for me, and apparently I have to be in charge of that at this moment till I can hire someone. But it's a beautiful interview. I started with TIK because his book is all about exploring the different disciplines of horsecraft. And so he decided to do one of those years, you know, where you take off and you do something really important in your life and you explore before whatever else. And he went to a bunch of different specialists in different disciplines of equestrianism who were all considered the best at whether they were dressage or jumpers or 3D or sort of pressure and release, natural horsemanship experts, cowboys, ropers, like the gamut, and how they're all equal, like what's the same. So I resonated very deeply with his book. I think I read it. It felt too quickly. Maybe I can go back. Yeah, I can go back and read it again. It's the beauty of ADHD and a bad memory, you know. Maybe some head injuries. Did ride a lot of horses that I fell off of. I can go back and have the pleasure of reading it again. So there's a bunch of stories about this adventure that he did with all of the world's best horse people in different disciplines and lessons he learned from it, and beautifully honest, and quite articulate. So he's a good writer as well. He's mastered his craft. So that's why it's today's pick. It's today's pick because as daddy's girl and wanting to be a veterinarian and seeing every discipline walk through these doors for treatment and considering them all equal, I resonated very deeply with his book. And I think maybe you will too. It would be a good gift for a horse lover this Christmas. And I haven't even been paid to do that. Spreading the love. And my cabin's getting warm enough now that I can take a layer off. So I'm going to bid you adieu and go play with some horses. Love you guys.